I brought a slide in case you didn't know where the boundaries were of Eastern Metropolitan Melbourne. It covers about 410 square kilometres, and those are the regions. I live in Glen Waverley and I've been living there since 1996. However, I used to live in South Melbourne and I used to live in Geelong and the Grampians. So I have travelled around quite a bit, including New South Wales and Queensland. So if you see from that area, it's rather large, and I do know reasonably well quite a number of those suburbs. So no fear, I am not necessarily parochial to Glen Waverley. We've been talking about the threat to livability, and I know there's been some numbers thrown around already today. So we've grown by 2.7% in the last year, and Sydney only grew by 1.8%, if you want to have a look at the difference. We've had a 34% increase in 3 years into Victoria, from 102,000 to 137,000 in the last year. And we have now accommodated over 1/3 of the growth of the whole of Australia, which is why we are absolutely frightened at the moment. I take the opportunity when I can to take photographs of ABC News, which you can see there. They were talking about global warming and the fact that we need to green our cities. And we have made a death trap where we've got urban heat islands. And in fact, Melbourne was the highest place to be, the highest numbers of death-related incidents in the last couple of years from heat island effect, which is quite frightening. And there is, luckily in Melbourne, quite a lot of shade, but where I am in Glen Waverley, we have very little. And when I've put up notices to council that I want to look at an audit for open space in Glen Waverley, it has been always knocked down by the majority of councillors. So therefore I must be doing something right, I think. There was also going to be 60 more towers going to be built in Melbourne. In the beginning of 2017, I remember seeing that there was still 60 approved, so hopefully we've seen most of them gone up. This is what you get if you've got a lot of towers. You get obesity, you get stress, you have suicide rates, you have social isolation. You have carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide poisoning, crime goes up, get wind tunnels, and at the end of the day, people are just gasping for air and to have some sunlight. So we'll have probably issues with vitamin D deficiency, mental health issues, and all of the things that go with an area without enough open space. These two, C120 and C123, were two amendments that were going to council when I was a Monash ratepayer spokesperson. I used to go into council every month and ask the difficult questions. They absolutely hated me, and I think they still hate me now, so that's really good as well. I'm obviously doing the right thing. We will be building an obesogenic environment in Glen Waverley. The C120 amendment, which had over 60 submitters against the proposal, now allows over 20 stories. Over the Glen, we are going to have 20 stories, 14 stories, 12 stories, and next door 15 stories. Over 800 apartments are getting built literally across the road on O'Sullivan Road, and they are advertising at Sky Gardens that this is in the Glen Waverley Secondary School zone. So we have a real issue there, and there's a pressure on that school, which has got 2,000 students, and there doesn't appear to be any organisation of how we're going to accommodate the kids that come from the eastern side of Springvale Road that live in houses. There are dormitories going up with 10 bedrooms. Some of them have got 3 staircases. They're built like guest houses because they will accommodate temporary students on temporary visas. And at the moment, 60 to 70 class students at the schools like Glen Waverley and Brentwood are coming in as paying students. And this is a real issue. So it's not just in Box Hill, it's also in our area in Glen Waverley. And in Glen Waverley, we do not have what I consider an activity zone. We have got a school and a shopping centre and a terminus of a railway line. And I think that to put this sort of stress and pressure on our area, which is only 1 kilometre by 400 metres, is ridiculous. These are the number of planning applications. I thought that I'd bring this in so you can see the differences, what's happened since 2009 up to 2018. If you look at it, in 2009, the planning applications to the planning department at Monash, 143 in 1 month. You look at it going up to 2014, we had 333 applications. And this is where we are having all the multi-unit and apartment applications coming through. If you have a look at the subdivision, that's when they're chopping all our blocks of land up. Then you've got your VCAT appeals. Now that's the really interesting one. You look at VCAT appeals in 2009, we've got 37 in 1 month. We have got 113 at the moment in front of VCAT. And for every one of those that the council is appealing our decision to say no, the developers are going in there with their QCs and they're pushing the boundaries, and we get maybe around 50% win rate. But our residents are paying for those QCs. The residents are paying for the representatives to represent for our council. And also we have a lot of independent people that are putting up money also to go against what they see as inappropriate developments. So if you ever want to have a look at the sheer enormity of building, have a look at the have a look at the town planning schedules on your council website. This is another picture of something that's been destroyed. This is the Glen. For some reason, our beautiful gum trees there had to all go. They came along and they put white crosses on every one of them, and they've all gone. So this was about 3 months ago, and this is that. And I don't think that they've added any lanes, so I don't know why they bothered doing it. But our neighbours were ringing. I'm a Glen Waverley ward councillor, so I was getting phone calls. Why have they done that? And I don't know. It hasn't seemed to have achieved anything. Now, this is probably something that doesn't surprise you. The police are now concerned about the overdevelopment pouring into the arterial roads, and having a look at that, you can see that 75% of Melburnians use a car to go to work, which is around or over 1.3 million people. We have 130,000 going into the Monash employment cluster every day, coming from outside of our region. And as you know, I think there was an ad in something in the paper this week that sometimes the roads are slowing to 1 kilometre an hour, even on the Monash. So that's another issue that we have. These are some photographs I took at about 7:30 in the morning when I was doing a submission for the C125 amendment. Springvale Road was, until this year, the highest accident-prone road in the whole of Australia for 5 years, and now it's just been beaten by Plenty Road, Bundoora. So, you know, maybe we've lost our mantle, but still, that's a pretty scary sight. The one on the right-hand side, that's Springvale Road in the morning at about 7:30. This one here up the top is High Street Road. This is because the Glen Waverley has the terminus of the railway line, and these cars are coming from Knox, they're coming from Rowville. We need to have the Rowville rail line built. We were talking about dodgy building surveyors and arborists. This is a prime example of a dodgy building surveyor who has accepted and delivered a permit for different things. The big hole in the ground's been like that for about 2 years. The building up the top there, part of that was started to fall into the hole. At the moment, the whole thing's stopped, and I did ask at council, and they said it's probably in the courts, or at least with authorities at the moment. The combustible cladding was on the lacrosse building, and that was just lucky the wind was blowing in a different way, that the people didn't get killed there, and that same cladding is on the Travelodge. And this was all with one surveyor, by the way. And I think that this sort of thing is replicated with arborists as well, saying that our trees are dying. That's why they can take them out. This is High Street Road. There's a building there that's just 10 half-built apartments in a 3-storey block. Now it's going to receivership. And they're asking for tenders, and then another abandoned building there. And I wonder if we're building ghost cities. Not sure what the planners think about that, but I think that personally, and this is not anybody's, not necessarily anyone else's ideas, but I think that we're going to have a lot of half-built buildings, and they probably won't have their lifts in there, and they might end up just being blights on the whole neighbourhood. The other problem I think we've seen is money laundering, and you can see that from what happened with the banking inquiry. Over 57,000 deposits were made that did not pass the laws, and I did hear that the TAB were also used for accounts for foreigners, and they got fined $45 million recently, and they had $40 million to pay in legal fees because they had allowed foreigners to have accounts with the TAB to park money. The other thing is the residents people can come in with a significant investment visa application if they put $5 million into some sort of a business in Australia. And I don't know if you see it in your area, but we see restaurants coming and going in Glen Waverley, and they appear and then they go and then they come again. People build or take over laundries in places where you wouldn't think you'd need a laundromat, where there's houses that are worth $3 million. Why would you need a laundromat? But anywhere you can just get a business and you can come in here. But look at the New Zealanders; they are banning the sale to foreigners, and that was just talked about just before. So, in this slide, I'd just like you to read the top of that. The government fuelled a wrecking ball through our suburbs. Without business cases, what trade-offs will support their billions of dollars that they're promising on infrastructure, and what will they sell, tax or cut to do that? And this government has sold the Land Titles Office already. I don't know what else they want to sell, but basically I've worked with in my council, I've got a lot of people from that political party, and there seems to be a real love of selling off public assets to fulfil promises of things that they haven't got business cases for. So I would suggest you look at the quote from H.L. Mencken: "Every election is a sort of advance auction sale of stolen goods, and they're about to steal ours." And this is in reference to Mary Drost. This was a photograph taken when I went with it into a rally with my Glen Waverley banner, and that was also about planning last year. We sat up there and had our banners for all of the residents groups all over Melbourne. And again, that's my area. If anyone is interested in having a chat with me later, I'd love to have a chat. But I'm very passionate about Sustainable Australia because I thought I would never find a party that aligned with my views. I came in as an independent to the council, and now I am a member of the party. Thank you.